Have you seen this new noise suppression in Discord?
No. What's that?
Just there's a little looks like vertical bars, almost looks like a barcode.
Mm-hmm.
Just like at the voice channel settings.
Okay.
It says enable crisp noise suppression. Make some noise like clapping your hands while speaking. Your friends will hear nothing but your beautiful voice, and then it gives you the chance to test it.
Okay.
I just tested it. All right, give it a go. I think it'll mute you while you do it.
Okay. Test. Test. I don't know. Test. That's crazy.
It perfectly mutes a clap.
Yeah, it does.
But it doesn't seem to mute anything else. Like I could make literally any other noise I could think of, and it didn't mute it. But the clap was gone.
What were some of the noises that you were able to get to work?
To work? Oh, like to come through?
Yeah.
Any sort of clicking fingers, any whistling, any bumping of the table, all that came through.
Interesting.
I've made sweeping changes to my life since we last spoke.
Okay, sweeping changes. What does that entail?
Sweeping changes. One I've told you about. One, I got an e-bike.
Right.
Which has just changed my life completely, because now instead of sitting on the couch all day, I actually ride around town all day.
Nice.
Which is nice. And the second change is that I decided to end my iPad experiment again and maybe put it off for another year. So I actually got rid of my iPad Pro and got a MacBook Pro.
Really?
Yeah.
That is a sweeping change.
Yeah.
So what was the straw that finally made you switch back to Mac?
It was a bit like that, actually. A bit of a straw that broke the iPad's back. I started getting comments from Yasmin that my posture was getting worse and worse. And I put it down to just like being hunched over the iPad. And now that I had the Magic Keyboard, I was, turning into a little bit of a T-Rex type posture when I was working on it all day.
Okay.
And I started looking into external display options, but they're just not that nice, really. Firstly, because the iPad doesn't fit the display, so you're going to be looking at the iPad aspect ratio on a widescreen monitor, which is just a bit silly. And I expect that'll be changed or fixed pretty soon. That wasn't all. Well, I'm hoping it'll be fixed pretty soon, maybe in a month or so.
What about just the possibility, before you go to the other reason, of just mounting the iPad at eye height and using just a regular Magic Keyboard and Magic Trackpad with it?
Yeah, I considered that option. The screen size was bothering me a little bit, so that wouldn't have fixed that. And I did... Yeah, it wouldn't be a bad option.
Okay.
So I did actually do that once before the Magic Keyboard came out as well. But it was just a bit... sometimes you do want to touch the screen, and it was at a weird spot. I guess... And I had it on a tripod, and it was only secured at one end, so it would, wave around a little bit too. So I just had a bad experience, but it was totally my own fault for not, fully investing in a good setup in that case.
Right. Okay, but
So that could have been a solution, but I guess there were just other factors that made me decide not to go that way.
So what else was a factor?
Just back on the screens, there's no really... if I got a screen, it probably wouldn't be an Apple screen, so I'd have to do some sort of calibration on it probably, since I do a fair bit of photo editing. But I don't even know, can you calibrate an external monitor when it's plugged into an iPad? You might have the monitor's own controls.
Right, that'd probably be it.
That would be it, yeah. And I'm not sure how good that would be. So in the end, I thought, why don't I just get a MacBook Pro instead?
So did you get a new MacBook Pro?
No. I thought I'd stick to my theme of having the last generation from a favorite form factor, my in the theme of the SE, having the best of the iPhone 5/5S. So I bet you can guess which year MacBook Pro I got.
2015.
Yes, 2015.
Nice. a solid choice.
And I got just about as high spec as I could find without going ridiculous. Like the 15-inch MacBook Pro comes in like a 2.2, 2.5, and 2.8, and I couldn't really find any 2.8, so I got a 2.5 with 16 gig of RAM, which is also the most they came with.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm expecting it'll last me a couple of years at least, and that's typically how long I hold on to computers, so I'm pretty happy.
Awesome. How long?
Oh, and also it had that anti-reflective coating issue, which because the one I bought was actually manufactured in 2017, it was still covered, so it actually has a brand new display on the unit.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So how long did this iPad display or this iPad experiment end up running for you? It was at least a year, right?
Yeah, a long time.
So, because it was a time that you didn't even have a phone. It was just the iPad.
Right. I was all in on iPad for a bit there. Thinking back, I think it must have been... It was very early 2019 that I got the iPad and sold the 2017 MacBook Pro, which had a failed keyboard 4 times in a row. So quite a decent amount of time.
Yeah.
I mean, I never fully untethered from having a MacBook because Yasmin's MacBook Air was here, and every now and then I did some odd jobs on that. But yeah, like at least 95% iPad for well over a year, which is a lot longer than the first experiment lasted, which was, I'm not sure what year, but whenever the iPad Pro 9-inch was around.
Oh,
that lasted a couple of months, I think, at most. So maybe it'll be third time lucky.
Is that the expression in Australia? Third time lucky?
Third time's charm?
Yeah, that's
third
what I'm
lucky?
used to
Yeah,
hearing.
something like that.
Okay, well that's...
Or it could be bad things comes in 3, which is also an expression.
Huh. I'm not sure I'm familiar with that one either.
All right.
Huh. So when you decide to try to jump into iPad again as your primary driver, do you think you'll opt for the smaller one, or are you going to try a big one next time?
I'd almost definitely go for the biggest one I could get, I think. Especially if it was going to be my only device.
Right. I agree that the big one is nice, especially when you have the keyboard case to have just a little bit wider of a keyboard to work with. But I didn't know how much of that would be negated if you're banking on being able to plug into an external display in the future.
Yeah, it'll have to depend on how external displays are supported. Like, will it just mirror, or will it be like a proper extended desktop type scenario?
Right. Man, hopefully we'll get some updates this summer.
Yeah, crossing my fingers. I'm also hoping that with the whole trackpad and mouse thing, that apps start supporting it better, because it was very frustrating using it, the thing full time with a mouse or a trackpad, and just having like certain views that should scroll or do scroll with a finger, not scroll with the 2-finger gestures and stuff like that. And even first-party apps like Find My has a scrolling view that doesn't scroll with the 2-finger gesture on the trackpad. So even Apple's apps don't support it completely yet. So maybe by the time I come back to it, everything will be hunky-dory and just work as you would expect it to.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure giving it that extra time will make a big difference. Especially when another full version of iOS comes out. Hopefully anyone that actually cares about their apps at that point will have updated.
Yeah.
So I threw a topic in I thought would be really short, but I just thought it'd be a fun question as a pre-show.
Yeah, I saw that.
I don't even know how this came into my feed. It's a tweet by Zach Seachy. I just came across it the other day, but he posed a question that asked if the original iPhone was inevitable, or had it not come out, do you think that phones would have gone in a vastly different direction? And it made me think back to what I was using in 2007. I had a Samsung Blackjack 2 which I guess is a smartphone. It ran Windows Mobile, had a full-size keyboard, and even for 2007 standards, it was just unbearably slow to do anything on.
I never had a blackjack, so I didn't know they were so slow.
Oh yeah, I mean they sure felt impressive and fancy back then. You had, a very lightweight version of Windows with a full file browser and like Outlook and all of that built in. Like a really rudimentary version of Word was on there, and so an impressive enough phone for 2007. But the iPhone made it look like a joke, at least in terms of performance. There's some functionality the iPhone was lacking at the time compared to that, but. And then the response tweet to this by Ibra Imred, he tweeted one of the prototype devices of what Android was looking like in 2007 before they completely reworked it with the launch of the iPhone, and it looks very similar to the Blackjack. It's the same full-size keyboard. It's even got the same selector wheel in the middle. And it seemed like before Apple basically reinvented the idea of what a smartphone is, this is really the direction the market was going, led, entirely by BlackBerry at that point. So I'm interested in what your thoughts are about the iPhone being inevitable before I weigh in on it.
Well, yeah, thinking back to when the iPhone came out, I had numerous Blackberries, starting with ones that didn't even have a directional pad. It was literally a scroll wheel on the side, so everything in the UI had to be selectable in a one direction scroll, or two directions, I guess, up and down. But yeah, eventually I had a BlackBerry which came with the little pad thing on the front, directional pad. And the way it was going was that the screens were getting bigger, brighter, higher DPI. But looking at this picture from Ibrahim, what I would imagine was happening is the screens would continue to get bigger and bigger. But I don't think anyone would have the balls to get rid of the keyboard, the physical keyboard on there.
Right.
So you'd probably end up with this device that was kind of like, I don't know, an iPhone-sized screen, maybe even wider, on top of a physical keyboard. And then maybe eventually someone would go to a software keyboard. So I would say it would be inevitable, because I imagine that would be the evolution. But I think we skipped a step in having massive screens and a physical keyboard and these monstrous devices.
Right.
Not too big, I guess. Probably the size of a plus-size phone today.
You think of something like the BlackBerry Passport? Do you remember that?
I don't remember that. Let me just quickly look up a picture of it.
Or even a better example is probably the BlackBerry Priv, Priv. That was a couple of BlackBerry's last phones, and it's exactly what you described. A giant screen, but still with the keyboard at the bottom.
Yeah. I can totally see phones going this way.
Right.
Before they went to a on-screen keyboard. This looks really good. This Priv. What sort of a name is a Priv?
I don't know.
Jesus.
And that's why Research in Motion got bought out.
Yeah. I have to know what Priv stands for.
You think it stands for something?
It's got to, right? Slogan, privilege, privacy. God. Okay. I'll pretend I didn't even know that.
That's right. At the very end, BlackBerry was trying to leverage privacy as their selling point over other Android manufacturers. Because the Priv was released 5 years ago, and at that point, Android especially wasn't very secure. They've gotten better, but BlackBerry had their own secure encryption enclave and stuff on their phones, and this is the best version of Android. So yeah, that makes sense.
That wasn't even the end of the company type proposition, because from day one that they were focused on privacy. And I know the company I was with, we chose to go with BlackBerry because it had things like remote wipe and I don't know, encryption
Sure.
and stuff that you just wouldn't get if you had other devices.
Right.
Like, you had to run a BlackBerry server to operate these things, right? Back in 2005.
Oh, really?
Back a long way now. Yeah.
Man. Yeah, I missed out on the Blackberries. I never owned a Blackberry. So. But what was it? BB Messenger or something? Was a big selling point?
Yeah. Yeah, BBM, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like iMessage before iMessage.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Man, if they would have... Man, I don't know. I was going to say maybe they should have released BBM for Android and iOS early on and got some kind of foothold in the market. That was like one of the last things they did, like a dying breath of a company is like, no, we'll give BBM to everyone. But everyone moved on by then. So
they needed a BlackBerry Messenger app store that would have secured the users.
Right. If I can't send a BBM with confetti, it was dead on arrival.
Someone sent me a message with balloons yesterday to the Mac, and all it does is put in parentheses, sent with balloons after the message. What is going on?
Yeah, there's a lot of apps still in macOS, and Message is one of them that needs a complete rewrite, I think. Maybe using Catalyst to incorporate some of these features that the Mac is lagging behind in compared to iOS.
Just be careful what you wish for.
All right.
Now tell me, do you think the iPhone was inevitable?
I agree with your assessment that we would have gotten there eventually. When Steve Jobs unveiled the iPhone in 2007, he said it was a phone that was 10 years ahead of its time. And I think that was pretty accurate. By 2017, I think the rest of the market, like the Android market, had finally matured and caught up to the point of being in parity with the iPhone. And I think that had the iPhone not come out in 2007, it would have taken that long for the market to reach that point on its own.
Yeah, okay.
But
that would have been a dark few years then, hey?
I probably would have been using the Blackjack 5 or something.
Yeah, imagine if Samsung had dominance over the industry. Oh, wait, they do.
It's really well, here's the thing. I was going to say imagine if Windows was still the primary operating system of mobile devices like that. I really liked Windows Phone, though. Mm-hmm. So I definitely used a few Windows phones in the past and enjoyed them quite a bit before Microsoft discontinued it.
You're talking about from like Windows Phone 7 series phones onwards, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Windows Phone 7 and Windows Phone 8. I definitely used a couple of phones that were running those. I don't think I ever got anything that was running Windows Phone 10 because by that point I was all in on iOS. But
your Blackjack, what was that running? Like Windows Phone 5 or 6?
No, it wasn't called a Windows Phone. It was called Windows CE. CE, yeah.
Yeah.
It was like version 6 or something of Windows CE.
I think that was the last one.
Yeah. So I've still got it in a drawer somewhere. Actually, when I was moving and packing everything up and unpacking it, I had actually dug up and charged up my Blackjack 2, and was reminded just how awful it was, and just how awful I was. I saw lots of my old text messages from 2007, and I was an annoying child.
Oh, it's funny to have messages all the way back to there.
Yeah.
Windows CE went up to version 8.
Okay.
Released in June 2013.
Oh, man. That seems...
I think this is separate from Windows Phone 7 series.
Right, because Windows Phone 7 was definitely out in like 2011, at least. Because I remember using it in high school. Windows Phone 7 launched in 2010.
Okay.
So I guess they had like two categories of devices. CE was like their old, like full keyboard devices, and then Windows Phone was their new touchscreen interface for devices.
Actually, I think I'm looking at just an embedded version of Windows, actually. Maybe not a mobile version of Windows. Relationship to Windows Mobile Pocket PC. Anyway, it doesn't really matter.
Oh, you know what? I'm looking at it right now. It's Windows Mobile 6.0. That's exactly what the Blackjack 2 is running.
Ah, cool. Yeah.
Yep, released in 2007.
I think I briefly experimented with Windows Mobile, but didn't really fall in love with it. I had a HTC something or other.
Ah, yeah.
Okay. Who is Zach Zishi? Because I've heard that name before, 100%.
Oh, really?
I can't place where I've heard it.
Well,
maybe I just found it from your, from like pop-ups from you liking his stuff before.
I mean, maybe. I don't know who he is either. I don't even know how his tweet made it into my feed. I assume someone I follow liked it or something. He doesn't have anything in his Twitter bio about being...
No, but he's also followed by like all the 9to5 Mac editors.
Maybe he works for 9to5 Mac.
Federico, maybe. Wouldn't you say that? Like Googling his name doesn't come up with
right
any sort of like 9to5 articles. It's probably just that I follow the 9to5 Mac people and they like or follow his stuff for some reason.
There's a Zach Zishi that plays in the NFL.
Don't think it's this guy. He doesn't look big enough.
Right. Oh, interesting. There's a podcast episode. I've never heard of the podcast Everyday Robots, but he's a special guest on that, apparently.
Oh, okay.
Zach talks about...
Big iPad user. Got all the iPads. Got a ton of switches.
Interesting. In this podcast, it says Zach talks about his feelings on the iPhone being our singularity.
Okay, what does that mean?
I don't know. The point where... What's singularity supposed to be? The point where computers take over?
Maybe.
It says he gives a preview of his next podcasting endeavors, so he's a podcaster.
Why doesn't he link to anything he creates?
Oh, I found another podcast he's a special guest on. He's popular for some reason.
Yeah. I have to know. What podcast is that?
This is Double Density.
Never heard of that one.
It says, great time with Zach Zishi from The Menu Bar.
The Menu Bar?
Yeah.
Ah, The Menu Bar. Yeah, I used to listen to that podcast.
Ah, okay.
That will explain it.
I'm not familiar.
So he's a podcast.
Oh, okay. I'm not familiar with the podcast, but I immediately recognized the album art when I saw it.
Uh-huh, okay. Mystery solved.
All right.
Anyway, we should get into things. It's already half past
Whoa.
the hour.
Okay, just really quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you try to navigate to the Menu Bar's website?
No, I can do it though if you want.
It's themenu.bar.
All right.
This is the link from their official Twitter page.
I kind of wish I had opened that in a private browser, so it's not in my history. What? Why is it a porn site?
I can only guess that they didn't re-up their domain.
Why is it a porn site? Oh, they haven't posted anything since 2018, so yeah, I guess they've just... Wow. Okay. Is it worth tweeting at them to let them know?
You might as well.
I'm going to do it.
Tweet right at Zach.
Yeah, well, I'm going to
we know
at
he's
the minibar
active.
and at
Yeah.
at Zishi. What should I say? The URL in your bio links to a porn site. LOL. Nah, take off that part. Should I put like an embarrassed emoji or something? Yeah, I'll do that.
Like a face palm or something? Or what's an embarrassed emoji?
Just like the flushed face emoji.
Yeah, that's a good one.
All right, flush face. Send. See if he responds before the show finishes.
All right, yeah, we'll have a post-show update.
All right. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
There was a huge piece of news yesterday.
Yeah, there
thanks
was.
to our friend John Prosser. That's what you're talking about, I assume?
Yeah. Our good friend John Prosser.
Our good friend who's been on the show many times, John Prosser.
Maybe that's the next person we need to invite on the show.
Oh, I'm not sure if I could handle it.
He's
quite a personality.
Yeah, as I say, his personality would take over the whole show.
Yeah, and then the next show it would be just him, and then we wouldn't have the show anymore.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Well, he basically announced Apple's glasses, which are called Apple Glass.
Right.
The more I look at the word glass just on its own, the weirder it looks. It's one of those words. Do you come across that before?
Yeah, I've definitely experienced that before. The problem with glass as a marketing name, well, besides the obvious, Google already has Google Glass that flopped, is how easy that you can just take off the first two letters and make it into something more inappropriate.
Yeah. I guess that's something I have to watch out for.
And the name Glassholes was already coined to reference people wearing Google Glass.
Ah, okay.
So now it could be easily carried over, assuming this is the official marketing name.
Well, we'll have to start rigging up some artwork of our own to start putting out there once they're announced, so we can make it our own Apple arse. No, let's not do that. So, well, what are the biggest points? I guess the most interesting thing to me is that there's not going to be any front-facing, well, not going to be any camera on the thing at all. There's only going to be a LiDAR sensor, which... Well, actually, we should probably talk about do you want to talk about the rumor first or the product?
The release date rumor? Is that what you're talking about?
No, just the fact that he's got all this information.
Oh, sure.
Because I guess we have to decide, is this legitimate or not before we actually talk about the product.
Right. I mean, he's had a pretty good track record for the last few months. Pretty much just the course of this year is all the leaking he's done. But he's leaked every single thing that's come out this year ahead of time with, details that no one else had. So I'm inclined to believe that he has some real sources that are at least fairly high up. I mean, this seems, this is a whole other level above anything else he's leaked, though. So...
Yeah, this is, would you say, an unprecedented leak? Has anything else of the scale...
He claims...
Has anything else of the scale come out?
He claims he has a video of the prototype of these, and if he shares that, I think that we're on the... Well, I'm going back to iPhone 4. We actually saw that before it released.
Because it was left behind.
Right. But seeing the iPhone is one thing, and saying, wow, that's such a cool new design. But actually hearing, price points, features, things like that, estimated release dates, I'd probably say this is an unprecedented leak. There's not been anything like this before.
Yeah, it hasn't been left behind in a bar. It's too early, really, for it to leak out of, the factory in China where it's being made.
Right. There's someone at Apple sending him this information.
Yeah, exactly. Someone at Apple in the famous industrial design room who's taken in their phone and has recorded a little video and then just iMessaged it to John Prosser. That's how I'm guessing it went.
Yeah, something at that scale, it's like there can't be that many people right now that have interacted with and had the opportunity to film prototypes of Apple Glass. So it seems like a huge risk. Like, even if we never see the video, the fact that he said he has one, that should narrow it down to only a handful of people for Apple.
Unless it's the security guy who's watching the security tapes. And he's actually just uncovering all his information and selling it because he's earning, like, minimum wage. Just needs some extra money on the side to feed his starving family.
Man, you would really hope that Apple pays their security people a lot more than minimum wage to keep guard of their industry secrets.
I don't know, maybe they're all still bitter from that time when Steve Jobs just fired one in the elevator for not knowing who he was. Maybe this is like...
I must have missed out on this. When was... What happened?
Now you're asking me for the actual details. Let me just look it up quickly. Steve Jobs, elevator firing. Alright, Quora, thank you. Who did Steve Jobs actually fire in the elevator? Now, of course, I'm coming to a thing that this was actually a fake story. Oh, this is like an urban legend. Like, Steve Jobs got into an elevator with security personnel, and the security personnel didn't know who he was. This is on the Apple campus, and then so Steve Jobs just fired him on the spot.
I mean, if you're a security person, you don't know who the CEO of the company is, you're probably not a good security person.
Yeah, maybe not. I kind of have to know if this story is real or not, though. Steve Jobs. What would I look up? Elevator firing. If that comes up with nothing, then I guess the story's false.
I'm not finding anything specific referencing what you're talking about.
I could have been sure I read this like in one of the biographies as well.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. That sounds exactly like something he would do.
Alright, this is taking too long, so I'll have to leave it until I'll do some more research later on today and report back if this is real or where I found this story, or if I just made it up in my head. It's possible, not probable.
Okay.
Very odd. But back to the glasses. So John Prosser was saying that he's trying to determine if the legality of posting the video that he has, talking to his lawyers and such.
Right. Yeah, that's almost enough to make me hope like this leak is fake, because I mean, he just put a huge target on his back if this is all true. Like, he better have a lot of lawyers lined up to protect him from whatever Apple's going to do.
Yeah, I've got no idea about like the actual legality of this sort of thing. Leaks have been a thing for a long time, and like dodgy low resolution videos also have been around for ages. And I guess because most of them just come out of the supply chain, you probably don't really have too much, or not public lawsuits around them.
I'm sure Apple is less worried about John Prosser and more the person or people sending him this information.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that they, whether they have legal ground to threaten him or not, are going to try their hardest to strong arm him into revealing, his sources.
So we're going to conclude that the info is legit then?
Going off his track record and everything he said, I have every reason to believe this is accurate.
Also, in the information that he presents, I mean, he doesn't go too far, like saying things that sound made up.
Right.
The info he has does hint at something that's like pretty like early or mid production and development cycle. There's no crazy like it'll do X and Y like details you might expect to be finalized in the last few months before release, which does lend to the credibility as well.
Sure. Yeah, that is one big thing about this leak is we know a lot about what they are, but he said nothing about what they do. Like, he didn't say this,
which you would not expect him to know from
sure,
just like a video and maybe some marketing material.
Right. Which, I don't know, maybe that means the people leaking to him aren't involved in that part of the process either.
Well, shall we get onto the actual details?
Sure.
Which all sound fairly credible to me. I mean, they're called Apple Glass, which you already said
I think
could be manipulated. But it is also a very aptly named for a product.
Yeah, very much.
I'm going to go give that a tick of approval.
Mm-hmm.
And $4.99 for the price.
I think that's
also for an accessory, which we'll get onto in the next point. But $4.99 seems like a reasonable price for an accessory.
Right. Yeah, I actually feel like this is the biggest news to come out of this. I was ready to drop at least twice that much on Apple Glass when they were announced. So the fact that this brand new product category, is starting at this price point is exciting news for me.
And the reason it seems to be so cheap is that it's kind of riffing on the original Apple Watch, and all the processing is not done on glass; it's done on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
So the phone's going to run any sort of processing code and then send the results, probably via Bluetooth, I'd say, back to the glasses.
I actually feel like it might not be Bluetooth.
It's going to be IR beam, isn't it?
No. I feel like when they say no processing at all is going to be done on the glasses, they mean none at all. I'm sending you a link in Discord. There's a new Wi-Fi standard, 802.11ay, that is that is gigabit speed Wi-Fi that Apple is apparently, according to this article, trying to rush into like their next phones. And this Wi-Fi would theoretically be possible to send data faster than 2 HDMI connections simultaneously. So all the processing can be done on the phone and all of the graphics, and it's literally just sending a video signal to the glasses to display.
So it's going to be even more phone dependent than the watch was, because the watch could do certain things. Of course, could generate graphics on its own. But yeah, I'm reading on this 802.11a is that it's got high enough bandwidth and low enough latency to send data to a high-res, high-refresh rate display.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. I guess the question is, how much battery does it use to do that?
Yeah, that's a solid question. But this seems... I know a lot of people would be frustrated by this, to have another device dependent on the iPhone. But I think for the near future, and probably even the at least medium-term future, there's no way to fit all the electronics you would need to do real AR processing and run apps in a pair of glasses frames and them still look like a pair of glasses. So this actually feels like it could be a really elegant solution to this problem, where the glasses literally just have the IR camera and a couple projectors onto the lenses, and then everything is handled by the phone.
Yeah, it's an ideal solution, really, because the iPhone's just got so much tech packed into it.
Right.
and has evolved for a decade now, that for something to just come into existence and be able to use all that tech just makes sense. And of course, Apple knows that everyone carries their iPhones wherever they go, pretty much. Always have them with them.
Right.
And of course, it's just another way to sell more iPhones as well, and to lock people into the ecosystem. So it's win for us, win for Apple.
Yeah. So I feel like something like this, 802.11ay, is going to be the communication standard for these glasses. And
well, thank God, because Bluetooth sucks, really.
Yeah, it's definitely not fast enough for doing all the processing, on a phone.
I mean, the Apple Watch is still suffering 5 years on from being a Bluetooth device, primarily.
Right. Yeah, I don't even use the Apple Watch for anything that requires communication back and forth to the phone. It's
yeah, because the performance is just too poor. It's just a bad experience.
Right.
I assume that's what you're going for.
I mean, yeah,
not just putting words in your mouth.
No, the performance is poor, and I just really have yet to find any kind of app that even's worth my time. Even what has it been? 5 years now? 5 years of Apple Watch, and there still isn't a killer app that I feel like I have to have. Still, the thing I use most is notifications and occasionally quickly responding to a text message.
Yep. That's its niche. I think it's going to stay there.
Sure. And you know what? I use the fitness features on it more than anything, and I'm sure people who are actually into fitness, use it a ton.
The next part of this announcement, leak, is that it's going to be, the Apple Glass is going to be a one more thing announcement. This is very specific, I thought. Mm-hmm. One more thing announcement at either the iPhone event this year or the March event next year.
Right. Yeah, I've really got my fingers crossed that we see it this year. Obviously, I'm excited for it, but I also worry that there's a set in stone window between announcement and release date, 6 months or whatever it usually is for a new product category. And by shifting the announcement, 6 months, then we're actually shifting the whole product release. Maybe that's silly, but I just want to get these in my hands as soon as possible.
Well, it's going to be some time away because, according to John Prosser, it's going to be late 21 or early 2022 that it's actually released. So you've got a long wait for this.
Right.
How long was the wait between Apple Watch announcement and release? It was quite a while, wasn't it? Was it WWDC to April? Or was it iPhone event to April?
I think it was announced the same time as the iPhone 6, and then it came out in April.
Okay. So this would be even longer than that.
Right. Be a year.
Not as long as AirPower, though. From announcement to cancellation.
Yeah, Apple Watch was announced September 9th, 2014. Other things about glass. According to John Prosser, they're made of plastic, or at least the prototypes you've seen are plastic, which I'm all but positive will not be the final material.
Yep.
Whether we see, I mean, I guess a lot of frames are primarily plastic, but if Apple goes even halfway to the designer route they did with the Apple Watch, we're going to get different frame types, we're going to get different frame materials. There could be, 5 different versions of glass, which something as personal as a pair of glasses that you're going to wear on your face every day, hopefully they would offer it in different designs.
I've got no doubt that the prototype he saw was plastic.
Right.
But what do you imagine the final product to be? Because plastic just makes a lot of sense. It's extremely light and durable.
Right.
And typically scratch resistant. They're not going to make the actual frames out of glass, surely.
Sure.
And, I could maybe imagine a...
Aluminium?
Aluminium?
Sure. Wood?
But Wood? Well, there's something. I don't know. How many wood products does Apple sell right now?
That's fair. I'm just thinking of different types of frames. But yeah, plastic does make a lot of sense for this product. I don't know.
Aluminium would have to have some sort of rubber covering just to keep it from being like this freezing cold thing you put on your head, on your face.
Right. I don't know. They're going to have to offer it in a bunch of styles. Maybe all those styles are plastic. But I guess I'm thinking of... I mean, the glasses that I used to wear were metal. They're very thin pieces of metal. It might get heavy at the size that it need to be for Apple Glass. So maybe plastic is the only material that makes sense when you're trying to cram like batteries and cameras and stuff into them.
Speaking of batteries, it's going to charge upside down on some sort of stand to charge the battery.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't really say if it's going to be wireless, does it?
I thought the word wireless was used, but
yeah,
I mean, wireless to the point, like, I don't know, is a couple push pins connecting to a charger still wireless, I guess?
Nah.
I can't imagine we're going to see something like Qi charging. There's not a big enough room in glasses for there to be a coil to charge from.
No. It has to be like electric toothbrush charging, like a conductive type thing.
Probably the smart connector from the iPad.
Yeah, something like that. A few contact points. So you do have to place it in the exact right spot on your stand, whatever it is.
Sure. I'm sure it'll magnetically align or something, just like the Apple Watch.
Yeah, the rumor does say wirelessly charge.
Right.
So, yeah, you're right on that. Back to the price for a sec. I forgot to mention it was it $4.99 plus prescription price.
Right.
So he has specific enough details to say that your prescription will cost more, and that these can take a prescription. Of course, you'd hope they would.
I wonder. I'm sure Apple.
No tinting. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. I was gonna say. I'm sure Apple's going to be partnering with some lens makers or something for this. I can't imagine they're trying to perfect making prescription lenses at the same time as this.
Yeah, surely. I'll partner with someone. Yeah,
right.
I got to.
The
The UI is codenamed Starboard. Now, this is not the first time we've heard of Starboard. If you think back to September last year, there were rumors of an AR headset with the system called Starboard. Yeah. So that's interesting that this has popped up twice in two separate rumors.
Right. Well, yeah, not only did we hear the name Starboard, because Starboard was in some early iOS 13 betas. But yeah, not only did we hear the name, some people were able actually to hack it and get it running on an iPhone.
Were they? That's interesting.
Yeah, not to the point where you could look at it and go like, oh yeah, that makes sense as user interface, but it was definitely like a 3D augmented reality kind of experience. They were clearly inside of an environment. So yeah, that was one of the things leading up to the September keynote last year that made me almost positive we were going to hear something about glasses as a one more thing last year, because the fact that this was in iOS 13 made it feel inevitable.
And Starboard will be in both eyes as well, not just on one side.
Right.
Which is cool.
I just wonder what that means. Is there going to be an opportunity for developers to make AR apps? Is this really going to be just like a notifications that you're going to be able to read on your glasses? There's so many questions about what you're actually going to be able to do with these. And
how something like this even just fits in with society and communications.
Right.
Because it's already kind of weird when you're talking to someone and they get a notification on the Apple Watch and they look at their wrist. Like, I guess maybe it's just an old fuddy-duddy thing to think like, are they bored? Are they checking the time? When can I go?
Right.
But, yeah. Imagine if someone is talking to you, making eye contact, and then suddenly their eyes just seem to like glaze over for a second and they're reading a notification. Maybe this is just the future we're heading to, but it's going to be very interesting to see how it all fits in.
Yeah, I wonder exactly how obtrusive that will be. The rumor today said that apparently the displays are only readable from one direction. You can't tell there's things being displayed on the other side. And if it's being displayed on the center of the lens, maybe there's even the possibility that people won't be able to tell that something's popped up and you're reading it.
Yeah. Yep, that's what it says in the rumor. It's only visible to the wearer.
Right. Well, I was thinking not only is the notification not visible, but maybe it's not even apparent that you're changing, focus.
Ah, I see what you're getting at. Yeah. So you don't even have to... Yeah, okay. If your glasses are looking at someone, then... Yeah, your eyes aren't moving.
Right.
You're not, looking up to the top right of your glasses frame to check the time.
Yeah, I think I'm only just barely, after 5 years, starting to overcome... this is mostly a family thing, but people saying oh, you have somewhere to be every time I get a notification on my watch. I'd hear that every time I'm having a conversation with my dad, and my watch buzz and I glance at it, he go, "You have somewhere to be?" And it took about 5 years of saying no. I just had a notification for that to start being the norm.
It's such a dad thing,
right?
He's probably just running with it as a joke at this point,
right?
Yeah, I do find myself consciously not checking watch notifications when I'm in a scenario where someone might take it as a bad sign. It's definitely something I watch out for. Around family, I don't care so much.
Right.
But if it's someone that doesn't know me that well, yeah, I do find myself putting off that glance until sometime when they're not going to notice.
Right. Yeah, that's another thing I wonder. Because like I said a few minutes ago, the Apple Watch doesn't have much of a unique purpose in my life. It's very much just another screen to get my notifications on and maybe prevent me from pulling my phone out of my pocket, a handful of times a day.
I was just going to say, when I'm not wearing my watch, the only thing that I miss is not having the time on my wrist.
Right.
It's literally a watch to me, number one.
Time and weather. I check that all the time, the temperature on my wrist.
Yep.
But my question is, if I have glasses that give me my notifications, does the watch have a place in my life anymore? If I can see the time, weather, my notifications, right?
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see
sleep tracking.
If they come out this year with it, maybe.
Well, it already has sleep tracking to some degree.
If you use a third-party app. I charge mine at night, but
yeah,
sure. Yeah, I don't know. I'll be interested to see how they differentiate these two products enough to make them... Mm-hmm. I'm sure glasses isn't going to be a great health and fitness device. So for that, the watch is still better. They're not going to be able to put a good heart rate sensor, definitely not an ECG and things like that in a pair of glasses.
Yeah, maybe not. But maybe the temples is the perfect spot to measure that sort of stuff as well.
Oh, maybe. Temples is good, where they take your temperature a lot too. Maybe it can be monitoring for fevers.
Hey, it's like a COVID monitoring thing.
There you go.
Every now and then, I've kind of wished that I had bad eyesight just so I could wear glasses, because I think they do look kind of cool. But now's my chance.
Right. You never want to be one of those people that just buy a fake pair of frames just for the look.
No, I don't want to be one of those.
I'm in the opposite boat, where I just got LASIK and got rid of my glasses just in time to put glasses back on my face for the rest of my life.
What a waste of $5,000. Sorry.
Because I'm sure this will be integrated into my life just as much as the watch is, where it's, if I'm up and I'm not just having a lazy day around the house, it's on my wrist. And I almost imagine the glasses will be something I even put on more frequently. A lazy day around the house, slip on a pair of glasses, and now I don't have to look at my phone. I don't know.
There are different scenarios where both just have a better position. Say when you're doing exercise, you definitely don't want to be wearing glasses. The watch is perfect.
Right.
Especially if you're in the water.
Mm-hmm.
Sleeping, the watch is perfect if you're into that sort of thing. I don't think I would ever want to have both though. Like, imagine having, like, you go to bed at night, I'm putting my computer on charge, I'm putting my phone on charge, I'm putting my watch on charge, I'm putting my glasses on charge, I'm putting my iPad on charge. It's like, next minute you're spending like half an hour just putting things on charge before you go to bed. So
this is why they need to perfect air power. So you just set everything down next to your bed and it all charges.
Well, there was an AirPower rumor again last week or the week before. I'm not did we talk about it? I don't think we did.
I think we might have mentioned it offhand at least.
We live in hope.
That's definitely one of our old podcast episode names.
Yeah, that was a show title, wasn't it? What do you think of my show titles? Because you never give me feedback. Are they funny or are they just stupid?
No, I think your show titles are great.
Okay.
I didn't realize that you've been quietly sitting there for the last 2.5 years hoping for some praise on your show titles.
It hasn't been quite that extreme, but every now and then I think, I wonder what David thinks about them.
No, I like them. I like them quite a bit. I think that you put a good amount of effort into picking some kind of catchy thing from the show to put in there.
Good to know. Oh, I have a Twitter notification. Zach Sishi. Yep, someone bought the domain and pointed it there. Awesome, eh? Then angry face and then a beer's cheers.
Okay.
Did he change it? He hasn't changed it. Seems like it's something he knows about.
But is okay with leaving on his podcast page, apparently.
Maybe he doesn't have access to the Twitter page because it was him and someone else that was doing the podcast.
Right. Huh. Okay.
All right, leave it at that. We've gone pretty long already, so should we smash through the next couple of topics?
Yeah, let's do it.
The first one is that there are more rumor details on the iPhone 12. I guess maybe the biggest one is that it's going to have a 120Hz ProMotion display.
Right. I
mean, you have to say it's going to be coming sooner or later to the iPhone because this is the direction that nearly all flagship phones are heading, is to have these high refresh rate displays.
Right, yeah.
Apparently the iPhone is going to switch between 120 and 60 depending on what the phone's doing at the time, like whichever one's more relevant. Like, I guess if you're watching a video, you don't need 120 Hz because the content's typically 60 FPS or lower. But playing a game on a 120 Hz iPad for the games that support it is really nice.
Yeah, ProMotion on the iPad is very adaptive, and it's a lot more than just like jumping between 60 and 120. Like it'll slow down to, I don't know what their lowest numbers is, but well below 60 or even 30, I believe.
Does it really?
Yeah. So if you're looking at something stationary,
no,
but as soon as you start scrolling, just in any scroll view, I think it immediately jumps to 120 for anything it can render that fast.
And it looks so good.
Mm-hmm. So
it makes the device feel faster.
Yeah.
Do you find that?
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't feel like, I didn't feel like a big leap when I first got ProMotion iPad Pro. But then going back to an older iPad, it was immediately noticeable. It's a lot like...
I was often switching between the iPad, the bottom level iPad and the iPad Pro in the last year or so. Mm-hmm. And it does make the old one feel like a toy, kind of like a cheap toy compared to the Pro.
Right. Yeah, it was a lot like when the Retina display came out on the iPhone 4. You're like, man, this looks good. But you didn't realize how good it was until you looked at like an iPhone 3GS, and suddenly it just looked like a mess of pixels.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I didn't think there was a lot here that we didn't already know. The 120 hertz ProMotion display has been rumored for at least a couple years at this point. Camera improvements is inevitable. There has been rumors that this is becoming in blue, maybe replacing the midnight green color, which sounds very intriguing to me. Definitely a more appealing color than green. Smaller notch, I think that's long overdue at this point. Apple's...
So that confirms we're definitely having a notch.
Right. Yeah, I feel like that was pretty inevitable still. But Apple's screen-to-body ratio is abysmal compared to everything else in the market now.
Screen-to-body ratio? What do you mean? Do you mean just the fact that the notch is there?
Right, yeah, that's the measurement of how much of the front of the display is screen and how much is just everything else, bezels, and the notch.
Okay. And so because of the notch, the ratio gets destroyed. When
the iPhone X came out, they were pretty high up there, like, one of the top in terms of screen-to-body ratio. But then everyone else surpassed them, and they've been kind of, they haven't updated their design. So this won't help much, because they still got the whole Face ID sensor to put in there, and there's not much they can do about that. But I don't know. The notch doesn't bother me much, and I can't imagine that getting a couple centimeters on either side is going to vastly change my experience with it.
Yeah, and speaking of the Face ID, it's going to have a wider detection zone.
Good.
Which would be nice.
Yeah. Hopefully wide enough that it can read your face from a flat surface.
Yeah, that would be cool, wouldn't it?
That would be... Yeah. That would get rid of a lot of arguments people have had in favor of Touch ID still.
Yeah.
So... And then, of course, we'll see a LiDAR sensor as well.
Yeah, yep. Got to have the LiDAR in there. A larger battery to power the whole thing.
Right. And, of course, the new, or maybe return to an older style squared off design.
That'll be the biggest point of all, won't it?
That's going to be the biggest selling point for me, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be such a tempting device to have that classic sort of design, but with all the new bits and pieces.
You'll have to decide between that or the new SE.
I don't think there's any question. It's going to be the 12.
Okay. It's been a while since you've treated yourself to a flagship device. You've earned it.
It has. The last one I got was the iPhone X.
That's right, yeah.
So we're coming on 3 years.
Yeah. So. And plus, you'll need this if you're going to get some Apple Glass in the next year or two.
Yeah, I highly doubt the Apple Glass are going to fit or pair with the SE OG.
Right, yeah, definitely not.
No way. Let's see. I did have an article in there about Prosser versus Quo, which came out about half a week ago before John Prosser's current video that he put out just in the last, almost only 12 hours ago, really. But it was a bit of a funny topic. Prosser saying Quo is wrong on something.
Right. Yeah, and he even seems to be contradicting himself a bit compared to yesterday's news. Because Quo said that the Apple Glass was going to launch at 2022 at the earliest. And then John Prosser came back and said that they're aimed for March to June of 2021. But then he came out yesterday and said that they might not even be announced until March of 2021. Yeah,
you wonder if he's just kind of he's tried to say that they're going to be announced, but has accidentally said that or indicated that they're going to be released March to June. I don't know. It is weird though to have such conflicting information 4 days apart.
Right. I mean, he definitely has some good information and some real inside sources, but I think a lot of what he says is him trying to just draw more attention to himself. It's like, I'm going to contradict Quo, and then in this same tweet where I'm contradicting Quo, I'm going to say, I'm going to leak a whole bunch of stuff here soon, so stay tuned.
Yeah.
So.
That's his persona.
So, yeah, maybe though, if they were planning on announcing it as one more thing in September this year, that would put March to June of next year as a release window, assuming it's got about the same Apple Watch timeline.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So maybe if they do decide to postpone for a March announcement, it'll be an immediate release afterwards.
Or a WWDC release. Get them in the hands of all the developers first. Such as like the Google Glass
right
strategy.
Yeah. I don't know. I want him to be right so badly because I don't want to wait another 2 years. But I feel like just with the state of the world right now, even if he's completely right, everything's just going to get delayed.
Yeah. This next topic wasn't really upvoted very high, but I found it quite interesting. Mm-hmm. It was posted by Seegers909. He says, people are modding the 2020 MacBook Air cooling to improve performance. And then links to like page 47 of a Mac Rumors thread.
Right.
And I actually went through and read most of it because it was pretty interesting. And the people are doing two things to their 2020 MacBook Airs. The first part is not that interesting, but they're basically putting like gaskets around the air intakes to improve airflow.
Mm-hmm.
Which, that's cool. It is improving performance a little bit because things are getting a bit cooler with the air just flowing a bit nicer. But the second one I found more interesting is that apparently these things are shipping with an air gap between the heatsink and the processor. And so people are putting copper shims of, I think they're saying around 3 millimeters between the heatsink and the processors to improve the cooling of the processor and getting better performance. And it's like quite like double figure percentage improvement in performance.
Right. Yeah, something like this, it really raises the question, like, what's Apple doing? I mean, they have to be doing this on purpose, right? To deliberately...
They can't have done it by accident.
Right. So is this just because they're trying to artificially keep the performance of the Air down to continue selling baseline MacBook Pros?
That's such a poor thing to do if it's true. I just can't imagine it.
Right. Well, I mean, such obvious things. Put a gasket in and make the heatsink touch the CPU. Like, you'd have to be deliberately trying to not do that. I mean, what is the baseline MacBook Pro, but something that just exists in their lineup, so they can say MacBook Pro starts at $1,300 instead of $1,800, because it's not like the baseline MacBook Pro is similarly spec'd to anything else in their lineup. It's a couple years behind as is, and so maybe they have to try to artificially keep the Air below that.
To sell people up to the MacBook Pro.
To upsell, maybe just so there is a gap in their product line. Because the moment that the Air performs comparably to the baseline MacBook Pro, it becomes like the default choice. It makes
there's no
no
point to get it.
So I don't know. It's weird.
So the 2020 Air can get 1,110 single core performance on Geekbench.
Without the heatsink touching the CPU.
Without the heatsink touching the CPU. And let's see, what does the MacBook Pro get?
Well, what was that? I sent you that comparison the other day.
Yeah, right. That's, yeah.
MacBook Pro baseline has it just jumped. Has a single core score of 859 and a multi-core of 3621.
So the MacBook Air is already beating the MacBook Pro on single core, but is suffering quite badly with multi-core. But even with like a 20% improvement, the Air is not getting, let's see, what would it be? 2350.
I mean, the MacBook Air's multi-core is like 2/3 of the MacBook Pro's multi-core.
Yeah. So even with 20% improvement, it's not really getting close to it.
And that's just number of cores. That's 2 cores versus 4. So.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I did ask in the threads, like, does anyone know why there could be this gap between the two, the heatsink and the processor? But got a few upvotes and no response. Like, no one can theorize why this would be the case.
Right.
It's not an accident.
No.
You don't just make an engineering accident that's so big. So if there's no valid scenario why this is actually required, then it just seems to be an artificial limitation, which is just shit, really.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of shit, did you look at the pictures in this linked article on Mac Rumors? I would be scared to do this to my MacBook Air.
Oh, really?
I mean, they got like foam just glued around the perimeter of the motherboard, and it looks like just globs and globs of thermal paste with just some copper stuck into it to make like artificial heatsink fins.
A lot of gaffer tape as well, just like everywhere. Yeah, it looks nasty. I would hate to do this. I would get on board with like just putting a piece of metal between two other bits of metal, but
sure,
yeah, I'm not going to be just like globbing thermal paste around the internals, hoping for the best.
Right. But I mean, I don't know. For a 20% improvement, I mean that's not negligible.
Oh yeah, yep.
But I don't know
for
a
$5 piece of metal.
I don't know if it's worth my warranty though.
Right, yeah. I wonder if I think that there would be a flag if you opened up the base and did something like this to let Apple know.
Get Apple Care Plus and then just call it accidental damage. Oops, I dropped my MacBook Air.
Unscrewed the base.
It fell in some thermal paste and copper.
I just keep tubs of it around, computer sized.
Right.
I actually operate it using external peripherals and just like the whole computer submerged in thermal paste.
It reminds me of when the redesigned MacBook came out like 5 years ago. I forget who did it. I think it was probably Linus Tech Tips. Did like a liquid cooled MacBook where he had like a cookie sheet with an inch of water in it, and he set the MacBook in that to make it run cooler.
Yep. Hilarious what people do.
Mm-hmm.
We've got another HomePod Mini rumor as well to finish things up with.
Okay.
And this rumor is basically because the HomePods are becoming quite scarce, you might say. Apple employees are now able to purchase up to 10 HomePods at a 50% discount, up from a previous limit of 2. So either they're just discontinuing them, or maybe they've got an oversupply, or there is a new model coming out. But the thing is that even if a HomePod Mini did come out, surely they're still going to be selling the old one. So
yeah, hopefully.
Maybe it is a replacement at a lower cost and maybe a smaller size.
Hopefully you're not losing sound quality at that point.
Yeah. But smaller does normally mean lower sound quality, just because a smaller
driver
woofer, say, couldn't move as much air.
What do you think the right price point would be for a smaller HomePod? Something that would get people interested enough to be buying these, but still satisfy Apple's, intense desire to mark everything up.
Well, they have to be comparable to probably the Google speakers. What's the Google Nest Max speaker thing cost?
The max sized one, I think, is like $200 or $300. The standard size one is like $130.
Oh, are there actually 3 sizes? I had mine. It was only the mini and then the larger one.
Yeah, there's 3 sizes.
Well, I mean, what are people buying when they're looking at speakers? People don't really buy speakers that often, so it's hard to make a judgment. But
right, yeah,
the big players in the market are Sonos, Google, and Apple, I guess, when it comes to actual like speakers with quality. There's definitely Amazon in there, but not really synonymous with like sound quality.
I don't think sound quality is the main thing people are looking for when they're buying smart assistant speakers, though.
Yeah, considering people play most of their stuff out of the speaker on the bottom of their phone. You're right.
Yeah. I mean, when you've got the Google Mini for $30 on the market, or same thing in the Alexa, whatever they call the small ones, similarly priced, there's no way Apple's competing in that market. I could see
No, it would be very un-Apple-like to compete for a low-cost segment like that. It's definitely going to be the middle range.
Yeah, Siri's not good enough to be the only selling point of one of their speakers.
Oh, no. Tell me about it.
So if they had... I mean, what? The HomePod's selling for $200 now. So maybe half that price, $100 to $130. I could see that being where it lives, but I still don't think... If people aren't buying HomePod for $200, I'm not convinced they would for $130 either. I think you really have to get below that $100 price point before people consider buying something like that on a whim.
Yeah. Practically everyone I know has the Google Nest Mini because it's so cheap. It's just like a why not purchase.
Right.
Apple's never going to be there, so what's the next compelling reason to buy a HomePod of any price over like $100?
Right. Sound quality is the only thing they have going for it. If they're going to sacrifice sound quality, then
that's it.
What do they have? So that actually makes me nervous a bit because I do like my HomePods. My whole home automation is built around HomeKit, so they work great for that. And they do have excellent sound quality. So the fact they might be phasing it out for something that sounds worse makes me kind of want to buy a couple more before they're gone.
Yeah, well, do you have any friends who work for Apple? Because I can get huge discounts on a lot of them.
I wish. They just need to take this 50% off and let everyone buy it for that price. $100 HomePod? Yeah, that's a steal. Exactly. I would definitely buy some more.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'd buy them for everyone I knew.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I'd be curious. Hopefully, maybe this will come alongside a big Siri revamp in iOS 14.
Yeah. Hell might freeze over as well.
We've revamped Siri by replacing her with Google Assistant.
That would be so good if it was like completely integrated in iOS as well.
That'll never happen.
Never. Hell would freeze over.
Yeah.
Well, I'm James VDM on Reddit and on Twitter.
And I'm Jelly Woot on Reddit and Twitter.
And you can leave us a comment on our show posts, reddit.com/TheRAppleShow.